A recent Quinnipiac University poll puts Donald Trump ahead of Kamala Harris in Georgia, while North Carolina is still too close to call. But combined, these states carry 32 electoral votes. Here to discuss is Blaze senior politics editor and the Washington correspondent for us, Chris Bedford. So, Chris, let's dive into this poll. How significant is this latest data that we've just gotten?
What stands out to me most about this data is how it puts Kamala Harris basically exactly where Joe Biden was when Democrats had their complete panic. Now, that's not true across the board. At that time, you had Joe Biden potentially losing New Jersey. Pennsylvania was going to be a cinch. But those first couple weeks and months, they seemed almost like years if you were a conservative watching this whole thing, where J.D. Vance was weird and Kamala was cool and she was another step in the rainbow arc of history, and Tim Walz was just a military veteran and a hero and America's dad. All of that has since come crashing down. That's like really one of the big takeaways from the VP debate in October, when everyone in the country who is going to pay attention, everyone is going to pay attention, is paying attention. You look at Georgia, you start to look at North Carolina, and you see these spreads that say she's in trouble. And Democrats, are looking at this too. These are states where polling over the last two presidential elections versus Donald Trump has basically been placing Republicans 6 points behind where they actually end up. At least that spread closes by about 5 or 6 points. So when you see this now reflected in the polling, granted, it's finally become cool to like Donald Trump. The moral stigma's gone. Democrats do start to worry and say this election may actually end up as disastrous as the Biden election could have been.
Chris, North Carolina. Do North Carolina in two ways for us. One, just talk about North Carolina in the next few weeks without the hurricane. Abstract, do you think Trump has a chance there? And then add in Hurricane Helene in the aftermath. How is that going to play out?
Well, I think that's going to depend a lot on the infrastructure. But I mean, right now, you've got a couple weeks before the election. Right now, you're starting to see these strange reports about the humidity and the rain certainly impacting the ability to mail in ballots. That's become a problem. But right now, also, you're seeing a lot of the sorting. You and I were talking about this a little bit before the show, where you have illegal immigrants getting $750 a day in New York to be able to stay in hotel rooms. But there's potentially offered $750 total stipend to help people get baby formula, to help people get groceries, to help people get water. That's the sort of thing that's really going to impact the federal government. It kind of reminds me of that Kanye West quote back in the day with Hurricane Katrina, an incredibly deadly hurricane by modern standards, which might actually be eclipsed when you end up going through these mudslides. Kanye West, maybe in an early sign of mental illness, went out there and said, George Bush doesn't care about black people. Well, this administration, whether you're in Ohio, a town that got blown off the map by a train, or whether you're in Appalachia, really needs to show that it cares about white people. And there's so many different signs and going ons coming down. This one, of course, is just an act of God. This is nature. But if you're the Longshoremen Union, or if you're Israel, or you're Iran, you know that right now the president of the United States is essentially incapacitated. He's not going to do anything to stop you. You know that Kamala Harris's only interest is in winning. She doesn't know policy. Poor Tim Walz up there last night. First question was talking about Kamala Harris's serious policy toward Israel and Iran. Well, that's an impossible question for Tim Walz. She has no policy, and if she had one, she certainly hasn't told him. So we had to totally make that up. But these countries, these unions are taking advantage of this chaos and this lack of leadership right now, knowing that by this White House. And maybe they'll reel it back after the election if Donald Trump wins. This is the time. And I thought there might be chaos. The war might expand to Lebanon. You might start to get some of the union pushback that you're getting right now. But I didn't expect all of these things, including this awful storm, to hit at once. More bad news for Democrats.
Well, you mentioned Tim Walz on stage. You wrote in your Beltway brief that he clearly lost the debate. I would ask you some of the best moments, but really I think they'd probably be more like worst moments that you picked up on.
Oh, my favorite. And I think I'm going to use this in any arguments I ever have with my wife. If I come home and she said, why did you lie about being at China on this certain day? I'm going to say, well, I grew up in a small town.
Riding my bikes.
Say, well, were you out drinking with your friends? And I'll say, well, when we were kids, we rode bicycles together. And I'm a knucklehead. I came from the middle class. My mom worked hard. I don't think these are answers that would suffice in any other moment. You've got Tim Walz's idea. We talked about this last night. He had to create a viral moment, a "you're no Jack Kennedy" moment. He didn't. I guess the only real viral moments he created were wide-eyed, like a deer in the headlights with J.D. Vance smirking. He created some viral moments where he went off on these ridiculous tangents to explain why he had politically calculated lies. And by the way, he did all this stuff. Well, Vance didn't even attack him. This was smart. Vance leaked to the media. We didn't report this because we couldn't confirm it. But his guys leaked all throughout the media that they were going to be attacking Tim Walz. His record was going to be on trial. Well, he didn't do that not once. And that's what Walz was prepared for. Instead, he was friendly as can be with Walz. He knew that the voters in Pennsylvania don't really care about some of the things in Walz's record. He's not going to win Minnesota anyways. Instead, he went after Kamala Harris. And that was a winning debate.
All right, Chris. Well, in wrapping up here, I guess what you're telling us, is this right? Is it fair to say that the joy of Kamala Harris is gone?
The vibes are starting to struggle. I think that they might need to take another hit off of that joint. The buzz is fading.
Chris Bedford, thanks so much for joining us. And always with the exquisite Tim Walz commentary. We appreciate it so much.